Hello, friends, family, and animals of all ages. I am excited to go to the dermatologist in about 6 hours. Never been to a dermatologist before, but we shall see how it goes. Today I am joined by Squidge, the stuffed avocado that I bought the second day I was in Hongdae. Squidge was kind of like my security blanket because not only does he act as a stress ball, he is also the best cuddler I have ever had the pleasure of spending the night with. I was looking on YouTube and I know I talked a lot about all the stuff that I was going to do while I was in South Korea. A lot of it's going to have to be put on hold because I do have to do a 2-week quarantine as soon as I get over there. But I was looking at this video that I found. It's a list of things not to do in South Korea, and apparently it's like a must-see before you go type video. We're gonna go ahead and watch it and see what we should not do.
Coarse hair, thin skin. When I'm shaving down there, not just any razor will do. Venus for pubic hair and skin with a patented irritation defense bar. Again.
I can't skip the ad. I can't skip the ad. Here we go.
Seoul is the 5th most populous city in the world. It has some of the best street food in Asia. That being said,
I will say they do have some pretty bomb street food. They have, so there's these things, I guess my friend Selena called them Korean pancakes. I'm not quite sure if that's what they're called. I know there's an actual word for them, but it's literally like this thing of dough, and they fill it with like brown sugar and like pumpkin seeds and all these different types of like sweet and like salty just fillings, and then they fold it back over and they deep fry it, and it's literally like a jelly donut, but it's like so much better. It's I can't describe it. It's like a mix between like a bun and a pastry, and it's top tier. I probably went to that stand. It was probably like a 15-minute walk from the Sejong campus, and I probably went there at least twice a week. Like, oh my goodness, so delicious.
There are cultural rules that might surprise you. Here's everything you need to know before going to Korea. Number 1, drinking etiquette. There are a surprising number of drinking rules when it comes to Korea.
Yes.
But the main one is that if a glass is empty, you're obligated to fill it, especially if you're younger than the person you're drinking with. That means that things can get out of hand pretty quickly. So if you don't want to drink a lot, make sure you leave your glass half full.
All those scenes that you see in K-dramas when they keep filling the cup and like forcing them to drink, like that stuff's real. That is very, very real. It can be fun, but it can also be not fun.
In addition to this, when someone is pouring a glass for you, make sure to always receive the glass with 2 hands to show respect. And again, if the person you're drinking with is older, when you sip from the glass, turn your head slightly away from them as another sign of respect.
Yeah.
You have to be careful when drinking in Korea because refusing a drink from someone basically means that you don't want to be friends with them.
When I went clubbing the first time in Hongdae, I was offered a drink. Someone offered to buy me a drink, and I almost said no, but one of the girls that had been standing kind of around their table, she came up to me and she was like, I know you're American, and I want to let you know that it'd be in your best interest to drink with them. And at first I was scared because I thought it was a threat. Like, this girl, obviously, I'm just shy of 6 feet and I weigh like 149 pounds. Like, this girl was so much smaller than me, but I literally thought that like, she could beat my ass if it came down to it. And so I immediately just kind of thought it was a threat at first. Like, you better drink the alcohol, like it'd be in your best interest. But no, she was legit like trying to help me. And I'm kind of glad that I did drink, because when they gave me the alcohol, as soon as I drank it, like, they just became so friendly and so nice, and I think I dodged a bullet with that one, but...
And they'll take it personally. Number 2, using chopsticks. The most common mistake people make while using chopsticks in Asia is leaving them sticking upright in a bowl of rice. And this...
I've heard about this, but not from Korean. I've heard about that in from like Japanese culture. Like it means like a death threat or something. And I guess like if you leave them like sticking straight up, it could kind of symbolize like a knife or something. I don't know if that's what it is, but I've definitely heard that like it's kind of like a death threat.
This act is actually part of many Asian cultures' funeral ceremonies and should be avoided at all costs.
But why? Oh, Jose, I've been on that street.
Number 3, seating in trains. Now, it may sound obvious to say not to sit in the reserved elderly seating, but in some cultures like America, you can take that seat if there are no elderly.
And yet y'all still park in the handicap spots, you know?
Just get up and move if someone comes along. However, in Korea, that's absolutely not acceptable, and you'll likely be scolded if you do. That brings me to number 4. Don't talk on trains. In most Asian countries, showing respect to those around you is a big deal, and you'll notice that no one carries conversations on trains, let alone makes a phone call.
Okay, the phone call thing I understand, but I remember one time we were in Gangnam and we were taking the train, and there was this guy. He came up and talked to us. We were standing by the door, and he came up and he's like, "Hey, you guys are American, right?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he was speaking to us in English, and he's like, "Do you guys mind if we just like talk in English for the rest of the trip or until you guys get off?" And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not?" Like, it's kind of comforting when you find someone who can speak English, like, and just carry on a conversation. But like, he really wanted to speak with us, and like, we talked for like the whole train ride, but like, it didn't seem out of the ordinary. And I guess to us, it wouldn't seem out of the ordinary because we talk to everyone. But I don't. This one kind of confuzzles me a little.
This is seen as disrespectful to the personal space of others, so try to keep a low profile. Number 5, don't leave a tip. While tipping in Korea isn't like tipping in Japan, where if you leave a tip it's actually considered insulting, tips aren't expected or required here. So if you do decide to tip, the amount is totally up to you.
Okay, as a waitress, I can confirm it's kind of weird how tips work over there, because like it's like here, a tip is a paycheck for you. If you get tipped, that's your paycheck. But like over there, like they get paid a good amount, but like it's kind of weird. Like they're not expecting you to tip if you eat at the restaurant. It's weird. Like I tried to tip once and the girl kind of looked at me and I was like, "For you." And she was like, "Oh, thank you." And she bowed and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." It's odd.
I have no idea what half of this stuff is. What?
Literally me, the first time we went to the Jochiwon market, like I was looking at all the food and I was like, "It smells so good, but will it kill me if I put it in my mouth?"
Number 6, don't be afraid to shout at your waiter. While it may seem rude in other countries, in Korea, the way to get your waiter's attention is by yelling.
It's not just like this in Korea, it's like this in China too.
The reason for this is that waiters in Korea will leave you alone for your meal, which means the only way to get their attention is to either yell at them or use one of the call buttons located on the side.
Whereas I, as a waitress, I am very clingy when it comes to my tables, and I will come up at least 3 times and be like, "Can I get you something? Can I get you anything else? Everything okay?"
In some restaurants. Number 7, don't get into a fight. South Korea is one of the safest countries.
Okay, so I know I'm laughing, but like, honestly, I didn't see a lot of fights when I was over there. There was always like the drunken, like, let's push each other around a little bit and insult each other, but like, I never saw anybody get into like a full blown fight. I feel like Korea is like such a safe place. It's like a very close knit community type area. So like, I feel like fighting isn't exactly like a common occurrence, like a mugging or like a thugging. Anyway.
In the world, but their legal system is unfairly biased against international visitors and residents. If you get into any altercations with Koreans, it's best to just walk away.
I've heard that if you hit a Korean or like get into like a physical altercation with them, it doesn't matter if they started it. It doesn't matter if they hit you first. You, as the international, you will go to jail, or like you will be detained. You will get in trouble. Like, it's not fair, but like,
as the law is likely to side with the Korean nearly every time. Number 8, there's no such thing as personal space. Seoul has a population of over 25 million people. So if you hate crowds, this is going to be a tough one.
I love people. I love being around people. I love being very close-knit with people. I love being in big groups of people. That's why quarantine was so hard for me. When I came back from Korea, being isolated and like just being stuck like with my family. I love my parents. I love my mom. I love my dad. I've been quarantined twice. Once when I came back from Korea, and then once in October when I actually got COVID and had to spend my 2 weeks. But I hate being isolated. I have very, very strong isolation anxiety. I hate quarantine. I never would have wanted my own suite in the dorms, which unfortunately I'm going to be stuck with. But I would much rather have a roommate. But I hate the idea of like being by myself, and I think that's why I love being in the city so much, is because like there's so many people. Like there's always going to be someone there, and I love just being around people, being with people, and just like spending time with people, and just I'm a social butterfly. I'm very, very social butterfly.
Because of the sheer number of people here, being pushed or shoved isn't considered rude. And if anything, it's to be expected. So if you find yourself being shoved or elbowed in a subway, don't take it personally. Number 9. Don't write using red ink. Korean culture is very superstitious, and writing names in red ink is thought to mean that the person will die soon, or that you want them to die.
Death Note, that you? I've actually heard this. I didn't think it was for Korean culture. I think I might have mistaken it for like Chinese or possibly Japanese culture. Like if you write in red ink, it's kind of like a notion that like you're preparing to die, or like you, or like something bad is gonna happen to you. Like red is like a color of death or something like that. Can you guys tell it's 2:30 in the morning? Because it's definitely 2:30 in the morning. 2:36. But
this tradition goes back hundreds of years, when the names of the deceased were written in red on gravestones to ward off evil spirits. So next time you're writing a birthday card in Korea, maybe hold off on using red.
I don't like using red anyway. It reminds me of teachers.
Number 10. Don't receive things with one hand. In case you can't already tell,
I do this at my serving job. This became such a habit. I accept a checkbook with both hands, and I hand a checkbook with both hands, or I'll have one hand like on my chest and I'll give the squidge. But like I'll have the checkbook in one hand and I'll like place a hand on my chest, and I got into a bad habit of bowing, and I've finally kind of broken out of that. I really hate this chair. Yeah, like accepting things with two hands, it's like very respectful. It also makes like the interaction very steady. Like, you kind of get what I mean?
Korea is all about respect, and part of that comes from understanding how to give and receive things. In most Asian cultures, receiving things with one hand is considered insulting and rude. Receiving things with two hands shows respect to the person giving you something. That's why a lot of the times when you get change back from someone, even a cashier, they'll hold one arm out with the money and then use their other arm to touch that arm to show their respect. So keep in mind, whenever receiving anything, always receive it with two hands, whether it be a drink, a bill, or any other kind of gift. Last but not least, number 11, always share. Koreans have a special concept of sharing called jeon, and it's difficult to translate into English, but it basically means the...
He said jeong, it's zong. It's zong.
between people in the society. If you don't share, you'll be seen as greedy, which means you have little or no jeon. And in order to travel in Korea, it's important to be aware of this aspect of their culture.
What a beautiful place.
And that's about it. If you made it to the end of the video...
So yeah, there's a lot of these I already knew just because of the time I took actually studying Korean culture before I went over there, and then a lot of it I accumulated as I was over there. I actually did a project in my communications class about like about stuff that you should and shouldn't do, especially when it comes to like drinking etiquette and like respecting your elders, especially like how to speak to people. You always have to speak formally to like people who are of a higher stance or like people who are older than you. It's respect is such a huge thing, and I feel like that goes for a lot of Asian cultures. Honestly, most cultures in general have a much higher respect for like people who are older than them or people who are more important than them. It's actually quite interesting. Like a lot of the time they can figure out fairly quickly that you're not. For me, it's like I can chew gum and spit it out in a napkin and throw it away, but like in some cultures, like you may not be allowed to spit your gum out in public, even if you do it in like a napkin. Like spitting it out is considered like a high offense. Like it's little things that like they notice that they can definitely tell like right off the bat, like you're not from here, are you? It's those little things that like we cannot do, and like little habits that we have to learn to break when kind of like getting used to being in that culture. But I was gonna say there were a couple things here that I didn't really think about, like especially the red ink. I like I heard it before, but I didn't think it had to do with like Korean culture in general, you know? I guess it could be like Asian cultures in like Asian cultures overall, but I thought it was mainly like Chinese. And there were a lot of things again that I knew, but I hope you guys learned a little something, and I hope that I can remember all of these for the next time I go over, and which is coming up. So I'm going to have to keep watching these kind of videos, keeping these things in mind, you know? Don't want to make a fool of myself. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please stay tuned for more, and I will see you guys soon.